Thanks, Mark, for being on the show today. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, first of all, thanks, Andy, very much for having us on the show. And when I say us, I just think of my whole team and those who are working in what we're going to be talking about today. I go back to really a time where I was working in the Middle East and became aware of what was happening to children, not just in war zones and conflict areas, but everywhere,
Right.
everywhere. And it became a realization that children are being trafficked at a very high rate internationally. And they are human trafficking, as you've heard, it's an enormous industry. They are a commodity that continues to be usable, not like a drug that's used one time and then it's done.
Right.
A girl can be victimized over and over and commercialized through that every single time. And so in that work, if you go into my past, I hate to just talk about it much, but I have worked in, the Middle East. I've worked in, I don't know, probably 30 countries in my life at this point. I've worked during the war against ISIS. Then from that, I realized something needed to be done to protect the kids in this world. And so I was blessed to found a team, an organization, Lantern Rescue, and it trains counter-human trafficking teams in really volatile regions of the world. And why I did that, I became fully aware of other organizations and what they were doing. I kind of poked around. I actually consulted with some, worked with them a little bit, and I left all of them realizing that they were all bringing a wiffle bat to a baseball game,
Oh, okay.
and
All right.
and said, "Oh my goodness, these people are not either doing what they say they do, or two, they're not equipped to do what they're trying to do, and somebody needs to do something about it." And so God was just laying at my feet the right people, the right team, and the right network, I believe, to do something really hard to really counter trafficking, not just be an anti-trafficking group, not to be an awareness group, not just to be an advocacy group, but to actually be a counter-human trafficking task force. And so from that, we got busy, and we work in a lot of places in the world, and maybe we can talk about that in the show. But all of us are former contractors, intelligence, law enforcement, special forces, diplomat people, and that's who God continues to bring to our table in this fight, and I'm very thankful for it.
Man, it sounds like you're doing amazing work, and I like your analogy. Everybody else has a wiffle bat, but Lantern's bringing an actual, real baseball bat to the fight, and I think that's outstanding. You talk about being in all these different countries, and a lot of people do think that trafficking is happening in other places, but it is happening here in the U.S., right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's an international problem, and there are crime syndicates and organized crime that pass borders, and they pass, they're international in their size. And then there is local trafficking down to the exploitation of girls and boys, locally, and people do ask me all the time, isn't it happening in America? What are you doing in America? And we do work in America from a consulting basis, from a partnership basis with sheriff departments and investigators and detectives, with Homeland, sharing information that we can. What we do overseas, though, is far more advanced for us, because we work under relationship with that foreign government, and they give us that authorization to train and to advise and to assist and to go and actually arrest people and rescue the victims. So in the States, people often ask me, well, and it happened in the States. I think maybe we're leading to the conversation about, you brought up an article, Andy. Well, tell me the article again.
Sure. Yeah. The Atlantic actually published this story saying, and the headline was pretty much that sex trafficking isn't the epidemic that we were all led to believe. So,
Right.
how do you feel about that?
And of course, they're referring to the U.S.
Yes, they are. Yes.
Right. No idiot or fool would ever say that about the countries around us, because there's, 47 million people in slavery today. And that's sex, labor, that's child soldiers, that's forced marriages, that includes all that.
Yeah.
So, so I see that article and I know what that's a whiplash from. What that's the article. First of all, I'm just going to say this: that article title lends to an untruth, and
Yes.
it's the whiplash. It's a whiplash from the sensationalized stories that have been put on social media about human trafficking.
Right.
So, we can go back to the Wayfair issue where, it was traveling through social media that they were putting little girls in furniture, selling them to, Hollywood
Yeah.
stars for
Yeah.
$10,000, a pop. Right.
Right.
And, here's the shame in that: because we get those false sensationalized narratives, people actually are misdirected and they miss what is really happening.
Yeah.
First of all, internationally, Hollywood and the elites and those people who abuse children, they don't have to pay $10,000. They can go to the Dominican Republic. They can go to, places off our border, and they can buy girls for $50, $20 all day long, as many as they want at any age.
Oh,
Okay.
goodness. Right. Yeah.
They don't have to pay $10,000.
Right.
They can do it. They can have hundreds of them for a couple $100. So, that creates a problem. And then it also creates a problem that our enemy is not smart enough to trick us, that, they're having to use these extravagant plans. No, they don't have to. I mean, they've been selling drugs for, 100 years. Trust me, they know how to sell a child too.
Right.
They
Yeah.
they know how to move a child in the same patterns. So in the States, what drives sex trafficking is drugs. Overseas, what drives it is poverty. Here, the drug addiction and the need for drugs is what is driving it. And the form that it most often, I believe, drives it right now, that's exploding and out of control, is CSAM, child sexual abuse material. It is selling material, online and through phones and all that. Now, obviously, behind that picture, behind that image, is the actual act. It may not just be nudity. It might be, aggressive abuse and rape, and all of those things are occurring. And so, the caseload that is occurring there is it's out of proportion, man. I mean, it's out of control. And that leads us into a conversation of pornography and, the availability of it all at the tip of a finger to a 12-year-old. You talk about protecting, you're protecting families, protective parents who protect their children. People ask me, they say, well, how do I keep my child from being, trafficked? Look, it's not that they're going to get picked up in the Walmart parking lot and trafficked. Your girl's going to get snatched by a van that somebody told you about on Facebook.
Right.
Look, that's not it. That's not it. I mean, yes, kidnappings happen, and those result often in death, but it's not their child's being picked up and sold, because, nobody wants to buy a product that everybody's looking for. So the moment somebody is kidnapped or they go missing, the national NCMEC and all the organizations put it out there. And man, I mean, every agent's probably 1,000 agents already aware of that issue and looking for that child. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And so, that's not, if I stole that child for trafficking purposes and I came to you, Andy, and said, hey, you want to buy this girl? You go, man, that girl's in everybody's news outlet. You're crazy. Get away from me.
Right.
You're not going to want to buy that girl. So, but selling images is easier to do. So the way we protect is not, watch your kid in a parking lot. I'm not, but here's the reality. And I don't want somebody to call your show and say, well, my kid was abused, taken in a parking lot. I understand that. But the number one way to protect your children from being trafficked is control their phones.
Yes. Amen, buddy. Amen.
Control their phones, man. I mean, that's what's bizarre, man. This world wants to talk about human trafficking, and they want to walk through the airports and they want to play, announcements that says, if you see any suspicious activity, like a trafficker is just going to drag a kid through Atlanta airport. I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's laughable.
that's such a waste of money and time, but because they don't want to talk about what has been done to our kids by giving them a phone with full access to pornography, chat rooms, all the apps that are just tracking everything about them. These things right here are the way the kids are getting exploited in America.
Yes. And you know what? I always caution parents about that because everybody's like, oh, my kid wants a phone because everybody else has one. And I
Right.
always tell them, I was like, hey, yes, this is a window to the world for them, but it is also a
Yep.
window for the world to see them as well. And
Yep. That's
everybody's
right.
like saying, hey, I don't want my kids to, see pornography. And they will think that this is, the regulated industry that's in the US, but your kid has access to all of the terrible things that you're talking about as well.
That's right. Yep. And maybe we've gotten off course on the show, but I mean that it just when we talk about the U.S. we talk about what's happening here in sex trafficking and the exploitation, CSAM is definitely an issue.
Right.
And even what we're seeing now is we're seeing it's such at a bad mental state of our youth that we're seeing 13, 14-year-old girls send those pictures without even being asked. You know what I mean? They've been introduced, they've been sexualized at such a young age, everything around them. Now they're 14 and they're sending these nude pictures to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The boy is now the victim. The boy who is not, we think it's all that, but it's actually, there's an alarming rate of girls who are just hitting boys with this. And I know these girls have been sexualized and they've been
Sure.
told, they look at Instagram and they look at Snapchat and every girl's posting themselves in this way and they think, oh, this is what I have to do, to be liked.
Yes.
Otherwise I can't get 2,000 likes. If I want 2,000 people to like me, I have to, exploit myself. And so then these boys who maybe there's boys out there who are not wanting that. They're just wanting to talk to a girl, but they can't do it because every girl's sending them nude pictures.
Goodness. And we see how the evolution of social media is affecting our kids and it's affecting our homes in ways that we never thought. I mean, when I got Instagram, I was like, hey, I'm going to go take all these pictures of, when I go out on a hike. And now
Right.
Instagram is being used by traffickers to sell children into slavery.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, overseas, let me tell you, Instagram and Facebook is the trickery path to, getting a girl and getting a
Mm-hmm.
victim to come to you, and to do things like that. Here, obviously, there's a million lanes of exploitation that are occurring through the phones from boyfriends who are older, from 40-year-old men who are, Snapchatting, 15-year-old girls to, an actual trafficker who then gets pictures of a girl, blackmails her, or an older boyfriend who makes a relationship through those avenues, then gets to meet the girl, convinces her to run away with him, or convinces her to shack up with him, and then starts to sell her, starts to pimp her out.
Right. Right.
And now even with COVID and the pressures of income that have occurred on some dynamics, you've got young moms who are seeking drugs who are selling their 1-year-old children, or
Yes.
selling
Yeah.
pictures of their 1-year-old children. And,
Right.
you know, and we have, let me say this in the show. We have a fantastic law enforcement in America.
Yeah, we
I
do.
mean, people have no idea how much they do and how much they handle, from the starting at the city cop to the investigator detectives to the detectives, the sheriff department to Homeland Security, the FBI. I mean, they are doing a fantastic job with all the cases that come at them.
Absolutely. And I get to talk to a lot of those law enforcement people. I can't necessarily directly interview them here on the show, but yeah,
Right.
this makes law enforcement officers angry. This is why they get up and
Right.
do their job every day, is because they want to put these people behind bars and they want to
Right.
protect children. So thank you so much for bringing that up. you've taken a baseball bat to this interview, man, and I absolutely love it. And I appreciate what you're doing here. Since human trafficking has somewhat taken a forefront in like our culture, people are aware of it now more than ever. So in the past few years, have you seen any sort of positive change that's come from this awareness?
Um, yes, yes, I have. Sometimes when you're in the fight, I'm just gonna be transparent. Sometimes when you're in the fight and your face is bloody and you are working on, cases all around the world, and your team is sweating it out in body armor training, all the things we do, which are very hard. Sometimes you can get cynical about any effort, that's happening
Sure,
because they're
sure.
not there. They're not there with you. You don't feel like
Yeah,
you're like, we are such a tip of the spear organization that sometimes we look around and we're like, there is no other tip of the spear. Like, where are these people at who should be doing things? But here's the reality: different people serve different parts of the fight, and there are some wonderful awareness groups and advocacy groups. And in the states alone, I absolutely am thrilled with the projects of therapy and safe homes where girls who have been victimized and exploited, that they can come to and they can have care and love. I love those things happening in the states. And I mean, that support the local sheriff and the sheriff's department they work with, I think that's some of the best work ever. I mean, because you have to restore that victim. Or let me tell you, a girl that's been trafficked, she may, if she doesn't have a change in her generation, she may turn around and do the same thing to her child, you
right.
know?
Right. And that's
So,
something that a lot of people don't think about. They think when somebody is
right,
out of trafficking, then they're out and they're okay and they can go and live a normal life. But it takes a long process to get there.
right. Yep. You're right. It's a long process. So the healing process it can be forever. I mean,
Right.
it can be the whole lifetime. But and then from that, we're having these great advocates who come out and they speak. I do wish they had a larger platform, you know, but probably they're not, because a lot of media and a lot of technology apps don't want to have the discussion really,
Yeah.
you know. So that's one of the best things I've seen. I also know that right now there is a fantastic intercept task force that's been put into place that is collaborating with Homeland, the FBI, State Bureau Investigations, and it's being put together with one of our strong partners. That's Operation Lightshine. So Land and Rescue, and we have a partnership with Operation Lightshine as well. And they have an intercept task force, which is an actual full office. And honestly, Andy, I'm gonna make sure, let's get him on your show too. Okay,
Absolutely.
who
Yeah.
who birthed that? So, and it's because he has a story of his sister being trafficked while he was serving overseas as
Oh,
a Green
goodness.
Beret.
Oh, man.
So, came back, and now we have this. He has this collaborating effort of those agencies, so that that intelligence and information is not being missed. That it's shared at a timely rate, and it's just an improvement from what our law enforcement's already doing. It's what in fact, I haven't talked to a law enforcement officer involved in counter trafficking who's not said, "Can we get one of those task force here, one of those offices here in our state?"
Right.
So
Right.
it's something that we hope is duplicated, but they're having tremendous success, and they're responding so quickly and doing amazing work. So, obviously that came out of all of this. I think there is a lot of good awareness material out there. I'm kind of thankful for it. Sometimes I feel like a lot of that is somebody taking a gun and knowing that they can end the issue or do more at the issue, and they're shooting at the outside of the target, and
Hmm.
and not the bullseye. But
Right.
uh, there has been good come out of it. You know.
Yes. And I would agree. So I know that you work with a lot of different people, you have a lot of different skills. Generally speaking, without giving away any sort of secrets, can you tell us about the process of how do you even find people to rescue in the first place?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have in the regions of the world that we work in, and I will disclose that we work in the Caribbean region,
Hmm.
because it's a hopping point and a bridge to obviously the States. It's a sex trafficking route to the States. So we work in the Caribbean. We work in West Africa because in West Africa we have a conflict with Boko Haram,
Mm-hmm.
and we have them taking an enormous amount of girls at an alarming rate every day.
Mm-hmm.
We work in Asia Pacific, and that's a couple of countries because they are just easily deceived, and particularly India is a country that consumes a lot of girls.
Goodness.
India, because of their belief system, they've aborted a lot of girls.
Mm.
So much that there's 41 million more men than women. And so, they constantly are soliciting girls and trying to get them, to them. And then we work in the Middle East, and that's a particular rescue operation given the withdrawal of Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, sure.
So, when I say we work there, like I've been there, every single one of them, so many times, and worked there on the ground. We have local assets that we have hired, trained, put into place as a counter human trafficking task force. We collaborate with the governments there, at least the ones that we can trust and the people we can trust, and we do a lot of work there. So, once we're there, we establish that. Believe it or not, overseas, the intelligence is not hard. It's
Oh
everywhere.
really? Oh wow.
It's just everywhere. Now, to work an organized crime fraction or a syndicate size, a larger cartel, that takes undercover people,
Sure. Yeah.
and particularly in the Caribbean, we have some deep undercover people, and because you have traffic routes that are connected to the states,
Mm-hmm.
so we have deep undercover people there. But and we work with Homeland and people in the agencies to support them and to help however we can.
Right.
So the intelligence is just everywhere. I will take, let's say, Haiti, for instance. Haiti, I've done probably over 200 raids of nightclubs in Haiti in my life
Mm-hmm.
with my team, and that's night operations. Those are violent operations. Those are not small nightclubs. Those are 200 customers, 100 customers on the street, girls inside, right?
Right.
And the way we got that intelligence is through their kind of FBI unit
Mm-hmm.
that's assigned to the protection of minors. And they're investigators. We found one or two who are willing to do the work. They're scared to death to do it, but we found one who, at a level was able to work and to give us intelligence. And then we'd roll out Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, and we'd raid those places,
Wow. Yeah.
We'd train a team. We trained the team tactically to work with us and showed them how to make arrests and how to do things and how to go in and how to extract a girl safely when people are in fights and you're all kinds of things going on. Guns are everywhere. So, we train those teams and we do that operation. So intelligence is never hard to find.
Man. Yeah, I guess it's one of these things that once you know what to look for, you can pretty much see it anywhere that it's actually exists.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
It is.
Well, as we wrap up here, Mark, human trafficking is an industry of supply and demand. So how do we solve this problem? I know it's a loaded question, but how do we stop human trafficking? Can it even be done?
First of all, my team, I will say, we get super excited, not with just rescues, but with arrests.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that makes us different as an organization. Okay. Is we make arrests with that country's police force. And making an arrest, when you arrest a smuggler or an actual trafficker at the top of the food chain, man, you just save 1,000 girls,
Right.
I mean, an enormous amount overseas. The number amount that they can move in a night, it's a lot. So, that's the one way, the best way I think to curb that. And that, man, behind that involves us dealing with penal codes, helping them adjust their penal codes, trying to recommend amendments. And I mean, we have partners that we're constantly adding and trying to work with to help us in that issue so that we can do sting operations. We can do the arrest. There are some countries, it's frustrating. You can rescue a girl, make an arrest, and the guy's out the next day. That's not going to end. That's never going to end human trafficking right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if I come over to the States and look at what's happening here, and say, well, how do we combat trafficking? How do we end it here? I go back to the CSAM issue. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the because America is the largest consumer of child sexual abuse material, and we're not child pornography anymore for multiple reasons people can research. But child sexual abuse material, the U.S. is the absolute largest consumer of that in the entire world. And there can be arguments made. Well, maybe it's because we have more technology here, blah blah blah, and all that. No, I think it's just we have more perverts. We
Mm-hmm.
have got it all. Listen, I've seen cases of men who were Americans in a state like New Jersey, who upper middle class, going to church, doing everything. Meanwhile, he's buying sexual abuse material from somebody in Europe who's buying it from somebody in the Dominican Republic, and he's making his efforts to go there on a vacation to physically rape those children, right?
Yeah.
And that all came from his phone, his
Mm-hmm.
ability to access pornography and then child sexual abuse material. If we want to curb that diet here, we have to aggressively go after the pornography industry.
Okay. Yeah, and that all makes sense. It really does. When I found out about the U.S. being the largest consumer of CSAM, that was kind of surprising to me. I wouldn't think that. Is it because, and I know you've got to go here. Is that because our laws are too lenient on this sort of stuff? I know you said it's because we've got a lot of perverts, but I don't know. I would think it's once you get a couple of high profile arrests that a lot of people would stop, but I guess that's just not the case.
Probably somebody in a cyber crimes unit would love to answer this and could do a better job than I could,
Sure.
from even your local sheriff's department in your criminal investigation bureau there. But I mean, I think there's multiple things. I just think that the technology is not being controlled enough. It's not being monitored. These companies aren't being they're not being penalized enough for what they've done. And unfortunately, that really just goes to the ideology of this country. We have, from I don't know what date, if I go way back to when pornography began to become accessible, but when the internet birthed in the 80s, I think one of the first websites that had transactions commercially was a pornography site, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it became the pillar foundation to the web. And if you look at organizations like Thorn, THORN, who do a great deal of statistics gathering and data gathering on what's happening in the pornography world online, how many people are looking for it every day in America, how many clicks, how many type-ins on Google, all that, you'll instantly see the problem. It's just
Yeah.
a math number,
Right.
it's a number amount. And so if they're not going to control it, if we can't control it because of the volume of it, then it comes back to the parents. Parents, get that cell phone and if you're going to give them one, put every parental control on it that you possibly can, and then get a third party app that controls as well. I would never, I will, that's why I'm only a proponent maybe of an Apple iPhone, because you can put and establish a great deal of parental controls in its iOS platform.
Mm-hmm.
You control the screen time. I don't have, there's a lot of things you can do with it to control those things. That's where it's got to be, because parents don't understand. I don't know. They just give this device to kids unknowingly. That kid's looking at pornography, legalized pornography. Then he's looking at other stuff, his age, and he's asking girls for those things. And now we're already into an illegal relationship. He's now 22 and he's still, doing the same thing. And now, he's susceptible to buying sex, and then he's going to try to sell sex too. That's what's occurring.
Got it, man. Mark, I appreciate your time here, buddy. I appreciate everything that you've said today. Tell us more about where we can find Lantern and what we can do to help you guys out.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, lanternrescue.org, LANTERN rescue. It's all one word, lanternrescue.org. Love it if your listeners went there and were able to support us. They can give. We actually have a new website coming soon. Not that we we always struggle with what to place out there. We don't say as much on there as we do, but you definitely can check us out. Follow us on Instagram. You'll see our rescues and arrests from parts of the world every week. Lanternrescue.org.
Mark, I appreciate your time, buddy. God bless you.
Yes, sir. God bless you. Thank you, Andy.